I'm your host, Dr. Laura Thompson, and I have with us today Courtney Seyl. Courtney Seyl is a writer. She's a writer that's a part of the Dramatists Guild. Yay. And we're here to talk today about her play Compulsion. Courtney, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm well. So, Compulsion obviously is a one act play. Would you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about the mindset that you had in designing this production?
Yeah, so the play kind of started um, right before the pandemic happened. I wrote a draft of it. And so I was like excited about it, ready to like maybe do it somewhere. And then COVID happened. And so it kind of went on the back burner and I focused on just staying home. And then around May in quarantine, I found it again and I was like, it's a hard time right now. I'm going through a lot right now. This might be a good piece to revisit and maybe like try and put it out there in some way. And I was able to get it read through a podcast, Shelter and Play, in like May of 2020. And so that was like a fun little boost for it to begin with. And yeah, and it's the thing I've written that's the closest I think to like me as a person, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, and it does. And so I'm gonna back up a little bit because I'm enjoying how this came about.
Mhm.
Pandemic uh, kind of forced a lot of people to be inside, indoors. You and I share a similar story because I had a significant birthday during that year, and I had plans to rent out a movie theater and present a film to a movie theater. And of course, by November, no one's going to any movie theaters in 2020. So
Yeah.
before that, I recognized the need to find a different way to distribute, had a couple of dollars and went ahead and purchased this network and thought, well, don't be selfish. There might be other people that might want to get some things out there as well. So I'm so happy about your story because a lot of people, it shows a way how you dealt with,
Mhm.
I don't want to say being backed into the corner as a creative, but you produced something during this pandemic, and I bet you there are tons of people just like you that produced. And so, first of all, I applaud you for doing that because, I mean, a lot of people didn't really fare well with the pandemic. Um,
Mhm.
do you believe, and I don't want to lead you into this question, compulsion? Do you think
Mhm.
compulsions are more about women or men, or what's your thoughts about compulsions? Who has the more compulsions in your opinion?
Oh, like in life? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't. OCD in my mind is so feminine for some reason. I don't know why, but I think it's because like women are called neurotic and like all of that. So yeah, I feel like, and also like as like a female presenting person, like I understand like my own like weird tics and compulsions and things that I like want to do or I feel like I have to do, even if it's like it's more ritual more than
Mhm.
anything.
And
And
I think
it's yeah.
rituals are probably one of the main things that helped people kind of get through the pandemic,
Mhm.
having a set established order of things that they were doing all along. So let's talk about the characters that you decided to use. So you
Mhm.
chose two roles, two character roles. And first of all, I love when playwrights choose just maybe just one or two or just a couple of characters to focus on. So, what was your thought about just choosing two characters in this one?
Yeah, so my initial thought with it was that I wanted to make a one person show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd recently seen the National Theater Live like film production of Fleabag because I was obsessed with Fleabag at the time.
Okay.
And started as a one person show and I was like, this needs somebody else there to like keep the narrative going. And so I added the second person to kind of play all of these other roles in Alex's life, basically. Yeah. So yeah, it's supposed to be a one person show, but now it's not.
Well, okay, and there's some there to me there's something to be said about it as well. A one person show, does that would that have the individual acting out his or her compulsions, um and maybe going into like multiple personalities? Was that ever a thought in the development of this when you thought one person?
Like, what is it like to spend one night? It's basically what scene two is now. It's like, what is it like to just spend one night with somebody who's like alone in their room and not able to leave it, basically. Like, I think there's a lot of like agoraphobia that goes with the OCD of like the ritual of like I have to leave at this time, I have to do this at this time, like, and if I miss that time, then I have to wait for the next time it's that time.
Right.
Like she's very caught up in her like little routines. And so initially it was just like the one scene of the, and it was like gonna be longer, but yeah, I added the other scene to keep it differentiated.
Well, okay. That opens up a wonderful can of worms because some people that are, I mean, how you've presented this idea relates to solitary confinement in the
Hmm.
prisons. I don't know if you thought about it in that way, but the person that's in solitary confinement pretty much just has that time and that space for themselves, and they really can't leave, and they're in that one room, and there might be, and it may be for a period of time, and then they may have an opportunity to get out to maybe see some sunlight or whatever, and then they're right back in solitary confinement. So I'm not sure if the prison system has kind of come to mind, but I feel like there are some parallels. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would think so. I have always had a before I did theater and I was like a psychology major, I wanted to like work in prisons
Okay,
as like a
wow,
forensic
no
psychologist. Um, but I can't do math, so I like, and I was like more into doing theater, and so I took that route. And so yeah, definitely is like very much a lot of my work is facing that like isolatedness that you
way.
feel both within yourself and like physically. So like not only are you trapped in your own mind, you're also trapped in this room. And so there's like so many barriers for you to go through to like feel like a person again, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I am listening to you and I am completely immersed into the discussion and into what it is like to actually be isolated. I'm going to throw another scenario at you.
Okay.
Recently, I've gotten involved in metaverse as relates to being in the Oculus and using the Oculus and going to places like Decentraland and some of these other places that are out there. I'm not sure if you ventured in that particular verse or verse metaverse universe whatever, but I'm of the thought and knowledge that there are people that they venture in that direction, and some, not all, but some are dealing with issues associated with being isolated in this current space, and they venture out into the metaverse. Have you been involved in any of that discussion, like recently at all?
I haven't, no, but I think I understand the notion of wanting to like find your own world to live in. Like that's very much my purpose writing is like I want to just escape for a little while or
Yeah,
even with reading or art in general, movies, TV, like that's a form of escapism.
exactly. Um, and so, okay, so we're definitely on the next page, which is escapism. Now, I noticed that you have Prozac and clomidopramine. Am I saying that correctly?
Clemipramine, I think
Yes.
is how it's said.
Yes, clomipramine. Yes. So, and those are medicines prescribed for people that have OCD. Do you
Mhm.
believe, or and I'm leading the question, so I need to rephrase it. Are those uh, medicines prescribed to control or bring an individual back from, or do they serve as another means of escapism? And again, I'm not getting. I don't want to corner you and be like, okay, well, what do you think? But when
Yeah.
you tell me your thoughts about actually incorporating this into the play,
Mhm.
and just tell me what you were thinking about when you put them in there.
Yeah, so when I think it was when I was rewriting it, I had just started my own like journey with Prozac and like antidepressants and all that. And so
Uh,
I was just like I remember growing up because I've been on like I have chronic illnesses, so I like have been on medication my whole life. And like the idea of taking another pill sometimes is just like the worst idea to me because I'm like I don't want to do that. But also at the same time, I reached a point where I was like I will try anything. And so like the process of going through and finding the right medicine is so like treacherous, I want to say, because you don't know what's going to work until
you try it.
you try it, and then you're trying it and you're trying it and you have to spend months trying it, and then maybe it doesn't work and you have to go back and you have to wean yourself off of it, which takes more months, and then you have to go to the next medicine. And it's just the frustration is very real when you're trying to find the medicine that fits you, and it can feel like there isn't going to be one that fits you.
Well, okay, first I want to say that I am so honored that you would be so open to even share this, and just know that just talking about this is going to help so many people. Um, so you're going through and then the other part about this that I'm really pleased about is that it's through the writing of this play that you're taking us on this journey. Had we not been backed into this corner called COVID or 2020, whatever you want to call it, we may, and you started this, you started this process maybe a couple of years maybe before this pandemic happened, but
Mhm.
now it's here. It's you've given birth to this thing, and you're taking us on a journey that I think we all need to take very seriously and embrace, some of the curves. I think that this is just, in a way, it's its own work of art, where you have a painting and it's almost done, and then there are some fine tuning, and I think even in your dialogue you're mentioning there are things that you're fine tuning and rewriting and making some changes with. um and so I want to, with that as a premise, I want to get into the overall vision. Like,
Mhm.
if this is a stage presence, what are your thoughts about lighting, props, and that sort of thing? If this is something that's film, what are your thoughts about lighting and props? So I just want to have that discussion so we can further bring us into the environment that you're talking. Even if this is Oculus, like what where are we going? And are we on a street? Are we in a room? Are we looking out the window? Just kind of just give me what some of the ideas that could work for something like this, a treatment.
Yeah, so when we because well we filmed it over Zoom, so it was very like one person with an iPhone. Like ideally, I would want the set to be just the bedroom and
Okay.
everything would take place in her bedroom. Even like the therapy scenes would be in a like in her bedroom. We would just have to find a way to like delineate that it's a new space because I want it to get that sense that she's trapped there. And so like filming it, it was very tight shots, it was very close up, it was very in her face all the time. And then staging it, like we would keep it very minimal, keep the lights very like in on them. And yeah, and then sound wise there wasn't a lot going on. Like I wouldn't say there's a lot going on in like a stage production wise, but movie production wise, there's there were tons of opportunity for like creepy background music or like something unsettling or something happier. So yeah, it was it is very interesting like thinking about the two separately because I feel like they would be similar but also very technically different.
Right. Um, this room seems like, okay, based on what you're describing, this room seems like it could be soundproof for whatever reason. Um, and as a result, there may or may not be windows or an opportunity for the individual to look outside. Or
Yeah.
it could be in a basement, or it could be in an attic.
Yeah, she's technically on like a fifth floor of an
Hmm.
apartment building. So
Okay.
she has like her one window.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is. I mean, I'm being taken there. I'm up on the fifth floor,
Mhm.
and how we get in there and that sort of thing. Okay, some practical things like, okay, what is she doing for food? I know that there was discussion about, not only the medicines, but there was a question that the therapist asked if, if she partook of any type of drugs or alcohol and that sort of thing. What's happening with her with, I mean, it's just one day,
Mhm.
right? So what's happening in terms of food? Is she hungry, or does she have feelings of hunger, or even have to go to the bathroom or anything of that nature? Just kind of wondering about some of that.
Yeah, I think she like is finding it hard to make food.
Mm,
I think like I know with myself when I get into that place, I'm just like, if I'm gonna eat, it just has to be something that's already made and
mm,
like next to me.
mm-hmm.
So I feel like she would have a lot of snacks,
Well,
like
right, okay,
not a lot
and
of
that's
meals.
right. And so in a way, when you think about it from that standpoint, it's possible that the individual is prepared for isolation in some way, shape, or form, and this sounds weird, but maybe the to the extent of the end of the snacks or the food or anything, or to the extent of the end where the individual has to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom is not inside the room, that person, when that's over, maybe there is the possibility of a shift. And maybe, in the mind of the person that's watching this, they're thinking, okay, eventually she has to get out. And it's funny because since you're the playwright, you could provide no way out of this if
Mhm.
you wanted to, or provide everyone with the relief as if you wanted to as a writer. So tell me your thoughts about this, that, and it could be ongoing. So just tell me
Mhm.
about the ongoingness of the isolation, if you can.
Yeah, I think it's 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 interesting because like in my mind she's self-isolating. She's forcing herself to stay home. The
Mm-hmm.
door is it's very like I directed No Exit a few years ago and it reminds me of No Exit in a way. It's like the door can fly open, but they don't leave. So, it's just you have to like convince yourself that you're able to take that step
Mm-hmm.
and leave. Like honestly, if you can take a shower, that's you're already 5 steps ahead of yourself.
Right.
Like and you'll probably feel better, but it's hard to like convince yourself that leaving and crossing that threshold is going to be good for you or like not going to take all of your energy away.
Hmm. Not going to take all of your energy away. So I guess it takes an effort to even
Mhm.
make the step, mental effort first, right?
Mhm.
And this is, I mean, I really do applaud you for this work because it is so thoughtful. Um, I'm going to read something,
Mhm.
um, and it's part of the way through. Um, the words say she sits, beats, stands again. Then it says, my therapist told me another interesting thing recently. In some strange accent, Alex mimics her therapist. Jean appears on stage in the spotlight, mouthing along to what Alex is saying. And so in this particular instance, if you didn't have the second person, if you didn't add this second person, we wouldn't have seen this other dimension
Mhm.
of, what is possible outside of this person's mind, like what she's thinking, what Alex is thinking in her mind. Um, could you talk a little bit about just that section and what your thoughts were in putting that inside this play?
Yeah, I remember like thinking about how to use the second actor in the second scene and I wanted to create this world where we have all of these people in Alex's life
Mm-hmm.
who we met one of them outside of her brain, but then we get to see like her own vision of what she thinks of these people. Like these are just her projections of who these people in her life are. Like she has the supportive best friend, she has the good therapist,
Hmm.
she has like a girlfriend, but it's like in her mind it's just it's not, there's something else that's just not right for her. And so it's her talking to these people and being like, you're not giving me the right answers. You're not giving me the answers that I'm looking for.
Hmm.
And she won't find those answers in other people. She just refuses to talk to herself. So,
It's such an intelligent way of I want to say shifting responsibility in a way,
mhm.
from her to the thoughts of other people. So it's that's I just thought that was so neat and that was so wonderful. I'm going down a little bit further, and I'm
Mhm.
looking at a time we're on day 3 of me not being able to leave the house until exactly 8:07. So that means there is a time element. Did you
Mhm.
have an idea of where this clock was? Was it on a phone or a watch or on the wall or what was she looking? I mean, where is this 8:07 that she knows exactly?
I imagine it's on her phone,
Mm-hmm.
like an alarm on her phone. Um,
And it's
throughout like
interesting. No, there's no mention of anybody calling or texting or anything like that. I mean, I guess up until this point, unless if I'm missing something. But
no,
how would go ahead?
no, she does have her phone because she's like checking it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also like 3 a.m. So there's nobody talking to her at 3
Okay.
a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
because everyone's asleep. Um, so she's like constantly checking the time to see if it's like an appropriate time to talk to people and like find the right person to talk to at 3 in the morning, I guess.
Hmm. And eventually she does check her, she does check her phone and then she sends a text afterwards. But I just find it so interesting that in isolation, a person really you could find that there is no one. Really, there is no one. And I think you've really done a great job with the dimming of the lights, the spotlights, the time elements, just to emphasize how alone people could really feel and become. Um, and this is really great. So Alex then is doing some breathing exercises. So how does the breathing exercises relate to compulsive behavior, in your opinion?
In my opinion, because OCD is a form of anxiety, when you feel that urge, your heart starts to race. And so everyone's always just telling you to do a breathing exercise. And which they do help. They do legitimately work, but it's
Hmm.
hard to like convince yourself that they work.
Hmm.
And so it's her taking a moment to like try it, but still being exasperated by the very idea of anything helping right now.
Wow, wow. Well, I'm so elated about this work. I mean, we go from sitting and texting and looking at the phone and going through breathing exercises to eventually um, dancing in some way, shape, or form where the music starts. Now, what did you have a music type, or for live productions, would the music type change depending on where you are, demographic, or anything of that nature? So tell me about that Friday night. It was a Friday night. We go out dancing on Friday night, and I let the music fill my body. So tell me about that music that's filling her body at the moment.
Yeah, I think we used some like thumpy techno music,
Okay.
EDM type music
Uh-huh. Yeah.
before. Just something with like a really good like easy beat to dance to.
Hmm.
I would totally love to see other people's interpretations of it. I have no idea. I think it would definitely depend on where you are and who's doing it,
Hmm.
like the song that would be used.
Yeah.
So that would be fascinating to me to see like different songs people
Hmm.
use for the
Hmm.
clubs that they're familiar with.
Well, okay, but there is something, and I'm so happy that you do have a background in psychology. There is something to be said about the kinetic and people getting involved into something, and so um, even in terms of role play, people can use dramatic pieces in their counseling sessions to just have people act out, and maybe through Bowles technique, determine what the next step would be. And so even when I look at, this page, where um, there is music, maybe that individual, mm, should decide what music that needs to be to fill the space and to fill their body. And if that gets them to move or feel or look ridiculous for just a moment, it's a part of just connecting as opposed to just being. You're connecting maybe to the ground, to the space, to your body moving, the padding and that sort of thing. Um, there's something about being alive that music may help an individual become. In fact, the arts in general, but in this case, music. So, um, and this is a personal question. Are you into music a little bit? Do you do music, or what do you think about music?
I love music. I used to play clarinet when I was
Mm.
like in elementary, middle school.
Hmm.
Um, I have a guitar that I barely know how to play, so like I'm not like musically gifted in that way, but I do love listening to music and I love sound designing specifically too. And so I have a lot of fun. Every time I write something, I make a new playlist for that specific piece. And so I do have a playlist on Spotify that's just like for compulsion. That's like what I listened to when
Whoa.
I wrote it.
No,
So,
this is profound because if you have a playlist for compulsion, then this piece potentially is like curriculum to try to help people get through varying levels of compulsion beyond the stage, beyond perhaps filming and that sort of thing. Even as role play along with the music that you've prescribed. I mean, there may be something there that helps people get through even
mhm,
further, and even the possibility of them adding their own. Sometimes, okay, I don't know if you've been to a club environment or a party environment, whatever. There's a playlist, or even karaoke. There's like a playlist, and all of a sudden, halfway through the karaoke, people are adding what they think needs to happen to the playlist. You can go to Waffle House. You eat
mhm,
something, and they have the jukebox. It's almost like that jukebox mentality where people can add to the environment based on what they're connecting to. And even in this scene where you have the girlfriend and you have the dance and the music, there's something very powerful in terms of some of the places where psychology might be going with music therapy and that sort of thing, where people can actually not only add to the storyline, but connect in a different way. This is me talking, but what are your thoughts about what I mentioned? Was this were you thinking about any of this when you put it in here?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, music has been like one of the things that I use personally when I'm like feeling the worst. It's how I get into like the right mindset for things.
Hmm.
It's what I listen to on the subway when I'm like I just need to meditate and get away from the subway. Like
Yeah.
it's
And
it's
there are theme
amazing.
songs, like you mentioned, Spice
Yeah.
Girls, and it's Spice Girls and French fries and ice cream, and so there are some themes that kind of have people connect in a variety of ways. And someone might think of Spice Girls, they may think of something else that they were doing while they were listening to that. Um,
Hmm.
and so even though on one end there's isolation, on the other end there is this art, be it music, dancing, whatever, that's actually helping that individual to possibly connect some way. And whether this is happening metaphorically in the person's mind or they're actually listening to the music, there's a means by which they can come out of this isolation, even if it's for a moment, just
Hmm.
to be connected. Tension when you wrote it, it's there, it's in the space, right?
Yeah.
So this is really cool. There is a mention of something in the third grade. I think we all have had some sort of third grade experience. What is it about the third grade? Now let's talk a little bit about maybe plans for the future. If someone wants to see this production, if they want to get their hands on it, and of course, my entrepreneurial mind says, okay, subscription, subscription. If someone wants to get their hands on it and try to redo it, or someone wants to see like the model of what this
Mhm.
looks like or hear it. You mentioned the podcast. Let's talk about how people can access this now in the variety of ways that it can be
Yeah.
accessed.
So currently on my website, which is just courtneyseyl.com,
Mm-hmm.
I have links to the video versions on YouTube. I just put it up there. Just to put it up there. I don't know, it seemed like a fun thing to put up. And then the podcast version is also linked there. And then it's currently on my New Play Exchange as well. If you go to New Play Exchange and look for Courtney Seyl, like it's on there. And if you want to do it, please hit me up, email me, contact me through New Play Exchange. I'd totally be willing to talk to anybody who wants to produce it because that would be really cool for
Okay,
me.
awesome. And so in the future, your goal is for it to be produced in how many different ways and where?
As much and anywhere. Like honestly, I'm currently doing rewrites on it,
Mm-hmm.
on like a different version of it
Mm-hmm.
that I want to make more expansive and then hopefully take to Edinburgh Fringe Festival title.
Yay! Awesome. And
So,
you could easily do a rewrite of this, change the names, and just have it be guys in prison, or a guy in
mhm,
prison, and yeah. So it's
mhm.
not exclusive for just for women. I mean, this the environments can change. You go in different languages. And do you speak any other languages?
I know a little Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't speak it very well,
Okay.
but
Well,
I know it.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm very excited about this piece. I'm excited about what you're doing. Are there any other works that you're working on that you'd like to share? And they don't have to be based on compulsion, or are you just milking this one for now to make it be what it can possibly be?
I'm working on a bunch of stuff.
Goody.
Yeah, because I'm also a director, so I'm directing a couple shows right now.
Mm-hmm.
Directing Mirrors by Caitlin Gould, which is a play about eating disorders, actually. So
Oh wow.
yeah. And
We
so
gotta get you back to talk about that one and what the director switch hats, the director hat, and what
yeah,
that's like. Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
totally. Um, yeah, and she's a friend of mine, so I can get her on here too to talk about the play.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going up starting May 3rd
Okay.
in NYC at Teatro Latia for
Very
New
good.
York Summerfest. And then I'm directing another play by Rachel Layson called Little Egg Big World. It's about donor rights and like donor conception kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's going in Theater Row off Broadway
Okay,
in June.
good.
Yeah, so I do
Well,
a lot of mental health stuff.
yeah, this is pretty fantastic. And again, I'm so proud of the way that you've decided to deal with the pandemic. A lot of people were not as successful with coming up with anything creative during the pandemic. And I just wanted to definitely applaud you for going in and coming out with something that is so powerful and needed for today. Not sure if you're aware, but according to NAMI, we are
Mhm,
in a mental health pandemic. It's kind of the pandemic after the pandemic. And so
mhm,
to be able to create pieces and show folks ways that they can cope with all a variety, a slew of things that are happening in the mental health space is adding to the body of knowledge. And the fact that you are coming from a psychology background, it says so much to this work. And again, I applaud you. Thank you so much for being so candid. There's so many things, there's so many pieces, so many rich things. I hope I didn't spill too much. I know I didn't spill too much because there's so much more inside this play that people need
yeah.
to see. I personally think it is excellent, not only as a production to redo again, but I think the role play can definitely work in a lot of spaces. Therapists that want to have people begin the process of working out what's going on with them with their own compulsions. And so I'm very hopeful for the direction this is going, and I look forward to speaking to you again about other
Yeah.
things that you're doing in the future. So
Thank you so much for having
thank
me.
you, and it's just awesome having you today.
Okay, thank you.